Oh shit. Here we go again.
Hello and welcome out to this week's episode of Outbreak Gamers. I'm your host, WebDave, David Anthony, big fat guy in the chair, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. And I am here with Sergeant Sentinel. Buddy, how you doing?
How's it going?
It's going great, man. Going great. You had me on your podcast a few weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm like, we need to know more about this guy. So I want to bring
Yeah.
you on to my show so people can find out a little bit more about you.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
No worries, no worries at all. Got the banner going there at the bottom, and also the information, links, and everything to your shows and your Twitter and all that will be in the description below. That way, people can find it easy. So, dude, let's get this started. I guess I usually start off with like, what was your first job that you ever had? I mean, paper boy or whatever, kind of thing, or education, So, what'd you start off doing?
My first job was in high school. I basically bagged groceries. I think that's where a lot of people started anyway,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I know my wife did that for a while, and then she cashiered for a while. So yeah, it's a good first job. Good first job for sure. Because you
Yeah.
got to earn money to get through this hobby we have.
Right? Right? Yep.
It does cost
Definitely.
money, that's for sure. All right, so let's go on to your gaming experience. So like, how did gaming start for you? Was it console, arcade, PC? What? How did it all start for you, and then how has it progressed?
Um, I mean, I've pretty much always been a console gamer. I did have friends that were PC gamers. The first time I really played any video games was probably in the summer of 1987. It was Super Mario Brothers on the original Nintendo Entertainment System. And since then, I've been pretty interested in video games. I actually didn't get a Nintendo of my own until 1996. It was the Super Nintendo. My parents had an Atari 2600, but you can't compare that with the Nintendos or the Segas at all. So I was always having to go to friends' houses, cousins' houses to play their Nintendos or play their Segas. And whenever I finally got a Super Nintendo of my own, I spent all of my free time playing Super Nintendo. My friends did too, but it was kind of the starting point for how much I really started gaming more regularly, I guess.
That's cool. That's cool. So I guess from there, what were the systems that influenced you or you grew with? Was it the PlayStation, Xbox? Or what was your journey in gaming? How did it go from there?
Well, most of the people that I was friends with at the time were all Nintendo gamers. There were some that were Sega gamers, very few. There were a couple that were PlayStation gamers, but um, Nintendo had such a following, I guess, among most of the people I hung out with. So Nintendo 64 obviously was the next progression, and I actually bought that myself. I used money from my first job that we just talked about to buy that. Of course, my parents were pissed. They wanted me to save my money, but I spent all my money on clothes and video games. So, I think a lot of us did at that age too. And I never really owned an original PlayStation. I knew, like I said, I knew a couple of guys that did, but the majority of people that I knew really, they were all Nintendo 64 gamers. And when I later on when I joined the army, I saw the PlayStation 2 commercials. I was really interested in the PlayStation 2. I was not interested at all in the GameCube. So I I transitioned to being a PlayStation only gamer for the most part. And it wasn't until I bought a PlayStation 2, a PlayStation 3, eventually bought a PlayStation 4, but it wasn't until Drive Club came out, and it was so horrible at launch that kind of drove me to picking up an Xbox One because one of my friends at the time had an Xbox One, he was also a racing fan. He said Forza Horizon 2 is great. You got to pick it up with an Xbox One. So I said, okay, I'll try it out. And I have been a fan of the franchise ever since. And Forza Horizon, in my opinion, is probably one of the best racing franchises there is. And again, Forza Horizon 2 is ultimately the reason why I bought an Xbox, excuse me, an Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
Because Drive Club they promised so much, but at launch, Drive Club was kind of, it was very bare bones. It didn't impress the community at all. And I felt really let down because already during the PlayStation 3 generation, they were talking of Drive Club and how great it was going to be. And then when it came out, it just wasn't great. And it's like racing isn't that's not my primary genre that I like. I love first person shooters, but it just felt like racing is like my second or third. And so when it came out, it was a disappointment. And the PlayStation 4 slogan was greatness awaits. And I told my friend, I said, I'm tired of waiting for greatness to show up, because it was at the beginning of the generation. So there weren't a lot of really heavy hitters.
Right.
And so when I picked up an Xbox One, I had never been an Xbox gamer before. And my wife was like, hey, you know what? You're just getting into Xbox. So let's find out what all good games are on Xbox and we can pick them up for you. And so I got, games like, it's from Capcom. It's the zombie game, Dead Rising 3.
Yeah.
Picked up Dead Rising 3. It was amazing. Of course, Forza Horizon 2 was amazing. Forza Horizon 2 felt like a love letter to racing fans is what it was.
Yeah.
And it felt like Playground Games knew exactly what racing fans wanted. And it was that dedication to making fun, amazing games that made Playground Games possibly my favorite Xbox-owned studio, because it was that high quality.
Yeah, they're definitely well done and can continue to advance and to innovate in the racing genre for sure. Really looking forward to the new Forza Motorsport coming out. That's
Definitely.
looking pretty sweet for sure.
Yeah, I
For
go
sure.
back and forth, because I'm like,
Mhm.
which one is better, Forza Motorsport or Forza Horizon? And it's like they're racing games, but they're different types of racing games.
Yeah.
But I love them both,
Yeah. And if you got Game Pass, you got them both. There you go.
Yep,
So
definitely.
that makes it nice as well.
Yeah.
So I guess from your gaming and your passion for gaming, and obviously you said you were in the army.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So with that, I guess that's is it tough to continue your hobby, or did you have to take a break from it, or is there like R&R type thing, or how did that work? I guess being assigned and out in the field
Um, excuse me.
that you can talk about. How's that?
Yeah. When we were deployed, the Army was actually really good with what we call MWR locations.
Mm.
In Afghanistan, it wasn't really as much, but there were guys in my platoon that basically put in their money and they bought PlayStation 2 systems and TVs. So when we were in our tents in Kandahar, a lot of people were playing PlayStation. A lot of people, especially NCAA football, that was a big thing. I jumped into it a couple times. It was fun, because everybody was kind of, into it in my platoon.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing was, of course, Grand Theft Auto 3. They did have MWR locations where we could go and play on PlayStation 2s. So I actually took a copy of Grand Theft Auto with me to Afghanistan in case I was around an MWR location. And of course, it would stay back at our FOB when we'd go out on missions.
Right.
But I also owned a Game Boy Advance at the time, and then later an Advance SP. So it's like for console gaming, I was definitely a PlayStation gamer at the time. But handheld, that was before the PSP.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a Game Boy Advance and then the Advance SP, and I had a number of the Super Mario games. And it's like whenever you're not able to play PlayStation 2, having a handheld that you could turn to was great.
Yeah.
But by the time we got to Iraq, which was in the summer of 2003, of course the PlayStation died because sand and dust killed it. So people were buying different things. Some people bought gaming laptops. A guy in my squad bought a GameCube, and that was the first time I'd ever played it. we played a lot of Road to WrestleMania on that GameCube.
Great game.
And it was fun. It was fun. It's just
Mhm.
GameCube is not my thing. But
Right.
we also had an MWR tent there as well that had Xboxes. It had the original Xbox and it had PlayStation 2s. And the first time I got interested in Halo was when they were doing a Halo tournament at the MWR where they had all the Xboxes
Mhm.
networked together and you had people
Nice.
basically playing multiplayer tournaments against each other.
That's
But
cool.
I didn't pick one up just because I was kind of like, well, I'm already with PlayStation and I already like the controller and I like the games that they have for it. So that's what I stuck with for a while,
Mhm.
But we were able to play them just because the Army knows that if you're under a lot of pressure, especially in combat, if you have a place like an MWR tent, and it's not just video games, it's a computer, so you can, you could contact your family back in those days because almost
Right.
no one had a cell phone when we were overseas. But it's like, the MWR really helped us out. They had pool tables and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that was a great way that I was able to, continue to enjoy video gaming even when I
Mhm.
was deployed overseas.
Yeah, and obviously, the Army, all the armed forces pretty much know that, you have to take a mental break from
Yeah,
the tough job that you do, or you'll go crazy, or have, if you don't have an outlet or a way to, you know, get your mind off of your job at hand when you're not doing your job. So I
yeah,
mean, it's important, and it's I mean, it's a kudos to them to actually, realizing that that's oh, these are just playing games. No, they're releasing tension. They're,
yeah,
helping with morale. There's a lot of benefits to doing something like that,
yeah,
and
definitely.
it's definitely awesome. So it seemed like it helped, kind of keep you going too. I'm sure,
Yeah,
even if it necessarily wasn't all the games or game franchise you wanted to play. At least you were playing something.
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
that is very cool. Very cool. All right. So I guess at this time you're back home. You're retired from the military.
Yeah.
You're on your career goal that you're on now. So I guess at what point did you were you like playing games and loving it, and then you watch some YouTube or you see somebody on YouTube, and then to get from watching YouTube to being on a show,
Yeah.
as a panel member kind of thing. How'd that come about?
Um, I when all the lockdowns happened and a lot of people were turning to being, live streamers or content creators, I
Hmm.
I had already been thinking about it for a while, but it was seeing the influx of people and how people who hadn't done it before were really taking to it. That's when I opened my Twitter, and of course, that's when I started putting together videos on YouTube. And it's a hell of a learning process because when I started, I didn't really have any idea what was going on. The guys from Retro Renegades were actually the first ones to have me on a podcast, and I'm greatly appreciative for that. Infinite, Graphic God, Jago Kukin, they were like, "Hey, man, you want to be, on this show that we have, the Retro Renegades?" And I guess technically it's not a podcast; it's just guys talking about games, hanging out, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
they were the first ones to have me on, and I kind of saw how it works whenever you're actually on something that people are going to be watching. And after that, of course, I was I didn't want to necessarily be on podcasts all the time. I did want to keep with content creation and live streaming, and I did that for a while. But whenever I was contacted by Bald Man Gamer, and he said, "Hey, I have a podcast that I was wondering if you'd like to be on." It was Stasis Chat. It's no longer around, unfortunately. But he said, "Hey, we're going to get four guys together, and we're going to be on Stasis Chat. It's a podcast about video games." I said, "Yeah, sure." And that kind of when I was on Stasis Chat, of course, Bold Man Gamer is also on XPN. That got my foot in the door for XPN. And the guys over there, I came on kind of as a guest at first, but once, all of us got along and, they saw that I really had potential, then they brought me on more permanent. And next thing you know, I'm helping them with review videos, and we're doing podcasts and scheduling and guest lists and all that. So it was interesting. It was interesting. And you have people that are gamers that are kind of like, well, I want to get into content creation, but they don't realize how much goes into it. Like you have guys like Colt Eastwood that have much more high end like editing software. They may have someone helping them with it, and even with having someone helping them with it, it's going to take them a lot longer. When you're doing it by yourself, there's great software that you can use by yourself that's easy to use, but it's still going to take you, once you have all the footage, it's still going to take you a couple of hours. And then there's putting soundtracks in, like YouTube will have soundtracks that you can use, but if you use some of them, you have to credit it to a certain person. Other ones you don't have to. So it's definitely a learning process for those that are just starting with it.
Oh, definitely. And with Colt, you might not be aware of this, but he actually, because I've interviewed him on this show before, he actually is a video editor, content creator, and promotion expert. That's what he does. So for him, it's a lot more second nature and everyday, job type thing. So for him, it is a lot easier to get. And plus, like you said, the level, the skill, the quality, his videos are pretty much second to none, which is amazing. But the thing that I like about the community is that you don't have to be the best. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to have the best equipment, the best mics, the best, If you've got a point that you want to get across, and you have a passion for the gaming, that's half the battle. And then a decent mic and an okay camera. And then like you said, editing and stuff on your own, it takes time, but I tell you, if somebody's really interested in it and passionate about it, you can actually, the more you do, the better you get. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's kind of like they have stage fright at first, but you just have to get out there and, like you said, a good mic. You go to Best Buy and you're like, hey, I need a good webcam and a good mic. Together, the two might run you $250 tops.
Yeah.
And there's free editing software out there that's actually pretty good. And you just got to start making videos. And once you start making videos and you start reading articles put out by people who've been doing it for 5 or 10 or 15 years, it's just a learning process, and you'll get better pretty much with every video that you make. You'll learn something.
Exactly. That's such a good point. Yeah, very true. And like you said, there's people that that don't like being on camera. We even talked about it in the beginning of this one. You said you had to set up an extra camera to make sure you were up for a camera, which I appreciate for sure. But I mean, and I've said a lot of interviews where people just they're not on camera. Even some of the big ones, like Randall Thor 19, he doesn't prefer being on camera. He says he's working toward it. We'll see.
No, I get it. But it's like something people don't understand when they first start out and they're hesitant to be on camera is that nobody likes how they look in the mirror.
Right.
Nobody. It's just human nature.
Or how they sound either.
Yeah, and it's like you could be a Twitch streamer who, looks phenomenal, and he or she has, is able to turn heads and stuff, but it's not going to matter because in their own head, they don't look any good. They don't sound good. They hate it. It's just how it is. It's how human nature is.
Yep. And there is a few rare ones that really think they got it going on, and it's like, ooh, cringe every time they get on.
Yeah, well, some people need to be a little more. They need to think a little more before they post some of the crazy stuff online.
Yes, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about it too. I like the community that we're in because it's it's pretty stable, safe, and and there are times that there are people that for whatever reason, the quote unquote Xbox, the Sony ponies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the people that are, I have all the systems and a good PC. So I'm playing games as a gamer everywhere, Do I prefer one or the other? Yes, because I prefer Game Pass. So I prefer the Xbox ecosystem. But I have a PlayStation, got a bunch of games for it out there.
Right.
So it's like it's just one of those things where and I know there's some people out there that they can only afford a certain amount, and that's totally understandable. And but just because you can't afford everything doesn't mean you have to bash everything else. You
Yeah.
know, and there's some people that make that's how they make their living. That's how they make their content is just strictly the hate, the salt, the whatever you want to call it. And to me, it's like sometimes I do like watching it because sometimes it's some pretty funny stuff that back and forth kind of thing. But as far as actually doing it myself, I can't see trying to get numbers that way because I don't think I'd last too long. I think I'd probably get slaughtered
Well, yeah,
myself. So
it it's hard because you have to look at everything the other side presents in a negative light, even if it interests you. To maintain that interest in your channel that you've built on negativity, you got to keep it going, and it's got to be exhausting.
yeah, exactly. I guess the biggest thing right now is some of the bigger Sony players that are just an absolute
Yes,
denial over Starfield. It's like,
I could think of a few by
yeah,
name. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Doesn't really seem that amazing to me, but
You know what though? I feel sorry for them because they built their entire channel around negativity
yeah,
and building up their brand, and when their brand doesn't deliver to their lofty expectations,
yeah,
they lose it.
yeah,
And
they
it's
do.
unfortunate.
Yep, yeah. I mean, Microsoft had some bad times for a while, and now they seem like they're turning a corner. And
Yeah,
now granted, there's sometimes it's you know two steps forward, one step back,
yeah,
like with Redfall. But I mean, at least it seems like we're going forward now, and
yeah,
that's a good positive thing. I say we, and I don't mind. It sure sounds X body to me, but that's not what I meant.
yeah,
But as far as like their brand is going, and and now PlayStation has one first party game this year coming out.
yeah,
You know, so it's like it's not and I but there's a lot of other great games coming out for the system. We know they got great games coming out in the future. So
yeah,
to me, it's like, cool. They'll get to it when they get to it. It's just like it was the year before for Xbox. So it's
yeah,
like everybody seems to be going through this because of the, quote unquote, the pandemic, or also too with Sony. It seems like they're going through a change because they changed in leadership.
yeah,
So it seems like now they're really pushing the gas games, which is cool. That's
yeah.
fine, but with that, there is definitely some changes in the works. It has to just kind of flow. It doesn't just click overnight. It has to work itself in, as it were.
But
So
it feels like the biggest problem PlayStation gamers have with the PlayStation brand is they don't necessarily trust Jim Ryan's vision.
yeah,
With Sean Layden before him, even though I was primarily an Xbox gamer, I still had a PS4. But you cannot deny that Sean Layden was for PlayStation what Phil Spencer is for Xbox.
agreed.
And Jim Ryan is not the same. He's just
Mm-mm.
not. So it
Yep.
kind of feels like a ship without a captain. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim Ryan's he's a cat, man. He's a strange guy. But you know what? We'll see what happens. Good luck to him.
Right?
as it
Yeah.
were. Like I said, I mean, you can't deny the sales base and everything right now. I mean, they have, you know, they have the foundation to continue to grow. It's just a matter of are they going to have the games that people are going to want in the future to
Well,
back that
yeah,
up?
and with PlayStation, it's like they have a treasure trove of IP that they haven't touched in at least
Right.
one generation
Yep.
that they should be dipping into and making reboots of. It's not necessarily that they're choosing the old over the new. It's just that they are honoring the legacy that built PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not doing that, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And and every company's going to have some legacy IPs. Yeah, there's a lot of people that really want a Banjo Kazooie for
yeah,
Xbox, which I
yeah,
think would be cool. I think they could modernize it and make it good. But even when you like today, if I was to play the original Banjo, I mean it's definitely dated. It's fun, but it needs to be modernized and upgraded.
right.
Give it the Ratchet
Definitely,
and Clank treatment. Man, I think it would be smoking.
yeah. Definitely. I agree.
So, but we'll just kind of see what's up with that. So I guess since I kind of took us off on a tangent, sorry about that. Let's
Okay.
let's kind of check out. So what is your state of gaming right now? What do you think? Gaming is at where it's going, and in the next few years, we got these deals and stuff that I don't
Yeah.
even after this one gets done, I don't think it's over with yet. So I think that's going to continue to be acquisitions for both companies, for all companies.
Yeah. I think, I think gaming is going in a few different directions. I think they're leaning more heavily towards digital. They're not really officially acknowledging this yet, but you have some big time releases that are coming out, like the new Yakuza game, The Man with No Name, or The Man Who Forgot His Name. I don't remember which one it's called.
Right.
Um,
It's cool.
it's digital only, right?
Right.
So I think there's a lot of companies that want to go all digital, but the problem with that is now the gamers are going to be like, well, you cut out logistics and you cut out it being on store shelves, so you can afford to drop the price.
Yeah.
You can afford to drop it. It's not worth $70 anymore because you don't have to worry about all the logistic stuff in the middle. You're going straight from you to me. So what you need to be doing is dropping that price down to maybe $50. I think you're going to see a lot of pushback whenever most of these companies go digital. I don't know how that's going to turn out. I mean, they may say, hey, you know what, you're right, we'll make it $50. Or they may just say, hey, it's $70 or nothing, because you
Yeah.
can't really get used digital games.
Right.
So they have the ability to control it, but if nobody's buying it, obviously it's going to go on sale.
Yeah.
As far as these consoles go, I have a feeling, excuse me, I have a feeling, and I don't think anyone's going to really want to hear this, but I have a feeling this might not be the last Xbox generation, but it's coming soon because you have TVs that can play Xbox games.
Yep.
So there's going to be a point when they just stop making Xbox systems. The same with PlayStation. You'll just have a PlayStation app or an Xbox app, and you'll have the subscription where you don't have to buy the games. You can borrow the games. But, the end of consoles is coming. I don't think PCs will ever go away. I think you'll have a PC in some form or fashion because I got the new iPhone. This iPhone can do more than a PlayStation 2 can, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like you could have a PC that big, with like a monitor that is like laminate you put on the wall, and everything is, you moving your fingers because it tracks your movement. That could be a PC, but it's still technically a PC. But consoles, I think, are eventually going to go away. And some people may not be happy with that, but ultimately, if you have a controller in your hand, it's not going to be that much different. I think not being able to play discs will put some people off. But again, if they're going all digital, again, that's not going to matter.
Right.
Because you're not going to be buying physical games anymore anyway. And if you have to buy physical games because you're a retro gamer, you'll buy the consoles that they made before they stopped making consoles.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree that at some point, this gen, next gen, a couple of gens, but at some point, it seems like they will go away, or at least not have consoles as we know them today.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It could be some kind of super streaming box, with the latest and greatest, in Wi-Fi and that kind of thing to help, with latency and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot who I don't know, but we know that Microsoft is already knee deep into their next console, and supposedly PlayStation is as well. So, and that's just because they have to have that start now to be ready for when it's time to actually make the switch. Or no pun intended. But yeah. So yeah, and one of the games you were, I think you mentioned the digital. I know that they had announced that Alan Wake 2 was going to be all digital, and it was going to be in the $50 price range, like you said, because they weren't going to make a hard copy of that. But then I know that another couple of companies, like a couple of days after they announced that, they went to them and made it public too. We were like, hey, if you want, we'll make physical copies for you, so you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And so there may be a deal for them to do, and that may be another way to do that, because I know like some of the games that came out for like the Switch that were that were digital only, and ended up there's a company I cannot think of the name of them. Somebody in chat will probably roast me for not forgetting what it is, but they're a company that'll actually make the hard copies with even the instructions and booklets and all that kind of stuff in there, which is pretty
Right.
cool, you know.
Yeah.
So as like a months after the game has already been out digitally, they'll go out and they'll make those a limited run. I think something like that's what it's called. So there are definitely companies that, you know, for the people that still like having the on
Yeah.
the bookshelf and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I agree with you that it's definitely seems like it is going away, as it were. So yeah.
And as long as they make a console that will accept discs, companies like that will still thrive.
Yeah.
But the moment they go with an all digital console, it's not going to matter anymore.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, because it's um and I do think that like this generation with them having an all digital box, both companies, you know, that's kind of them kind of testing the waters,
Yeah.
laying the foundation
Well,
for
they
the
did last
future.
generation, but I don't think people
True.
were ready for it.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think my daughter had one of those Xbox ones that were digital only.
Yeah.
And then she found that out after she's like, well, I got all these games I can't play now. It's like, you knew what you were
Right.
getting. Oh, damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she still borrowed my system. Excuse me. But so yeah, so I guess with that, as we start to wrap things up, I guess if you don't mind, I always ask this as to like what to everybody is to, and you can give me more than one answer because it
Sure.
seems like I always get more than one answer, which is fine. I've never gotten one answer. How's that? So it's okay. No pressure. But what is a game or games that you are most looking forward to that everybody knows about? So not like any insider stuff, but it hasn't been released yet. That like, you know, I can hardly wait for this to come out.
Right.
What's that
Right.
game for you?
I mean, there are a number of games that were announced
Yeah.
over the past couple weeks, and I'm looking forward to some of them. But I think the title that really tops my list would have to be Grand Theft Auto 6, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, we know it's coming. They said it's coming. But man, I
Yeah.
really want that. I'm ready for that first trailer, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, because like there's been like Dan Houser left, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was around since the Grand Theft Auto 3 days, probably before,
Yeah.
and he left, and you had Leslie Benzies, which was one of the producers. He left. You had Laszlo. He left. So a lot of people were concerned about the status of Rockstar Games, especially after Red Dead Redemption 2 had the controversy of so much crunch, and the developer spouses were completely livid about it. So there was concern that Grand Theft Auto 6 could be in jeopardy, especially because it's apparent that the executives running the company now are not like the executives running the company 10 or 20 years ago.
Right.
So it's kind of difficult, but I still have hope. And I think it's going to be a great game. I know Dan Houser probably had a different vision, so who knows whether it would have been better than his vision. I'm sure in a documentary in 20 years they'll talk about Dan Houser's original version for it, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone will be like, "Oh, that would have been better," or "Oh, I'm glad it turned out the way it did." Who knows
Right.
at this point? But I still have faith that Grand Theft Auto 6 will be a solid game. I still
Yeah.
have faith. So
I have to agree. I mean, it's got so much going for it. I mean, you know, when 5 is still, you know, and usually like the top 50, top 20
yeah,
bought games week after week after week, and it's
yep.
like, what? You know, they're doing something right.
Well, and a big reason for that is Grand Theft Auto Online.
Yes. Yep. Yep. I think, and they like a lot of the sets are like, you know, hey, you can buy this set for like $19.99, and it includes all these online monies included with it, but it
Yeah,
helps, you know, helps their numbers keep going up. So they're not stupid. They know what they're doing.
yeah.
Keeping that in the mindset. Anything else, or is that your big one?
I mean, that's really my big one. I think if they reboot it, or if they gave us a sequel to Sleeping Dogs 2, that would be up there with Grand Theft Auto.
That would be
But I don't
nice.
see that happening as the studio United Front. I think it was called United Front Games. They closed. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So, well, gosh, Sergeant Sentinel, thank you so much for being on here today. If you don't mind, tell everybody where they can reach out to you and where they can find you and the podcast that you're on.
Yeah, sure. I'm on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. It's all SSG Sentinel. That's SENTINEL. I am on the PSN Party Podcast. It's on Tuesdays, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. The XBL Party Podcast, Thursdays, 2 p.m. Central Time. We are working on another podcast. It's still kind of trying to figure out what's going on with it. That will probably be Fridays at 6 p.m. And for anyone watching this that is a reader, you like novels, you should definitely check out my novel on Amazon.
Nice.
It's called The Hunt for Jenks Fargo. It looks just like that.
Very cool. I'll put that in the description below too. We'll get the links down there for people to click on.
It's on Amazon. Definitely pick it up. I appreciate it. And I think that's about it. That's all I got.
All right, Sergeant, thank you so much, man, for being on today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You are most welcome, sir. And thank you for everybody for watching us here at Outbreak Gamers.